All right, we are recording and we will get going. Thank you everyone for joining us this morning. We have a exciting tech and career talk scheduled for you today. I will not be speaking as much today as I had my wisdom tooth removed yesterday, and I just don't want to overdo it, even though I feel pretty good. I don't want that to change an hour from now. So I'm going to relax. I have a good friend of mine who actually started the Tech Talk, Chandria Seaton, our former national secretary for BDPA, will be stepping in to lead our conversation today with Miss Lyla Jones from Google. So excited to have you. Just a bit of background. Now, I'm Devin Jenkins from Fitzgerald, Georgia. I see a lot of Georgians in the house. Currently in Milwaukee, which is the native land of our speaker today, but with GE Healthcare as a senior technical product manager in our global supply chain organization, specifically with the digital technology team, where I've been a global deployment leader right now. I've been leading the Tech Talk since last January. Took these over from Chandria, who got these off to a great start a couple of years ago. So excited to have her back with us today. But BDPA, Black Data Processing Associates, been around since 1975, with an emphasis on taking careers from the classroom to the boardroom, preparing youth for computer programming skills and providing a forum for IT and computer professionals to continue to grow and develop in their careers. So that's a little bit about BDPA. These tech talks happen twice a month on the second and fourth Friday of the month. And we have a range of topics throughout the year scheduled. So our Q2 theme is cloud. So we wanted to have Google come in and introduce their cloud platform to us, but also hear from Lilah, who's a proponent of BDPA and is doing great things in the field. So excited for the conversation today. The last thing I'll say before I bring Chandria off of mute is that Jesse Perez, who is with Google as well, works in the recruiting department and connecting external partnerships. We'll be dropping a link throughout the chat periodically. If you're interested in being contacted about opportunities at Google and learning more, please pay attention to the chat and click that link that Jesse is dropping and complete that form so they have your information. All right, I'll be quiet now. I'm going to let Chandria take this over. Lilah, if you have trouble unmuting, let me know and I'll make sure you're good to go. But Chandria, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you so much, Devin, for just, catching us up and that awesome introduction and telling everybody about BDPA. We love BDPA, and so glad that you all are here. I get the awesome pleasure of introducing to you Ms. Lyla Jones. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So Lilah leads a team that brings the best of Google to solve growth challenges for strategic customers across multiple verticals globally. This includes solving for transformation and enabling a culture open to change. So prior to this role, Lilah spent 10 years, over 10 years actually, at Microsoft and Dell in a variety of sales and leadership roles, and is known for authentic leadership. We can absolutely appreciate authentic leadership. Lilah is committed to lifelong learning and serves as a guest lecturer and adjunct professor at Suffolk University in Boston and Northwestern University in Chicago. She is the proud mom of 2 children and cherishes time spent abroad, vacationing in Spain with her family. Lilah enjoys the challenge of endurance sports and recently, listen to this, recently achieved a lifelong goal of summiting in Kilimanjaro. Amazing, amazing. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce and welcome Lyla Jones.
Hey, everybody. Good to be here. It's always interesting when I hear that intro, and all those things are very true. But since we were talking about Milwaukee, I always like people to know, I was born on 9th and Capitol, and I started my career in a body shop. I used to work on cars. So it's been a journey, and I'm always happy to chat about it.
Wow, worked on cars, huh? Interesting.
That's how it started.
Okay. So, say a little bit more about that. Working on cars, did that pique your interest in a career in tech?
So I love that you asked that because the kind of work that we did, or I did, was very technical, right? Vehicles are very technical. Trying to figure out how to fix them when they've been in a car accident is very technical. I think what that did, kind of as like my first job out of school, was it helped me understand how to deal with people. I learned, because I was in a retail environment, on how to deal with people in a very heightened emotional state, but it also really prepared me on how to be successful in a male-dominated environment. Because you can imagine, in a body shop, not a lot of girls, right? And so I constantly had to kind of work with trying to get people to be motivated to do things when I looked different than them and I was a different gender than them. And so it was a wonderful foundation for building a career in tech, because it was very technical, and it also dealt with, working with people who didn't look like me and didn't have my background. And so I'm very grateful for it. It's probably one of the best experiences I've ever had.
Awesome. Well, thinking about that and being a Black woman, in tech, and thinking about starting in the body shop, right? And you said it really well. You were the only female, really. And so thinking about fast forwarding to now and some of the experiences that you've had, what's been some of those biggest barriers that you've had to overcome being a Black woman in leadership in the tech industry?
Oh, there's so many. Yeah. But if I had to boil it down, it's always interesting when you're in an environment where people don't look like you and don't have any context for who you are. And so what happens is you start to change in order to mirror them, right? And that's not just as a Black woman. Anybody will do that, right? You mirror who you're trying to engage with. That's been happening since the beginning of time. It's called assimilation. And so I found that I often would assimilate into organizations and probably change a little bit of who Lilah was so that I could be successful. At least I felt like I had to do that. So all of a sudden I became really adept at sports. At the time when I was just starting my career, you needed to golf. I don't know if that's still the case anymore, but you needed to golf, right? If you wanted to be on those conversations. And there were certain things you just did if you wanted to be successful and be seen as successful. And so I certainly dabbled in all of those things. That gave me the vernacular to be able to talk to anybody at any stature, at any point, so that I never had that inferiority complex of, oh, I'm different than you, or hey, you may only know me from television shows where you saw African Americans, because a lot of times that's the context for people to know or think or put you into a box based on what they see on television. And so really kind of having exposure to lots of different kinds of people, and then really understanding that as an African American woman, and knowing that people have no context besides what they may have seen on television, really taking a very empathetic point of view with people and giving them space to be idiots. I've had to deal with certain times people, and this wasn't that long ago, I've talked about this, where I was in a meeting with a C-level gentleman at a large company, and I was leading the meeting and I had all the context and I asked for it, and I had another person there with me who was my peer but happened to be a white male. And this particular executive would not direct any questions to me. He only spoke to the white male, who was my peer, by the way. And it was awesome because this white male was an ally, and he said, hey, listen, Lilah's in charge here. I actually don't know. And the executive still looked at me and went right back to asking him all the questions. And so I'm sharing that with you because I've had to be very tolerant and understanding and give people space to learn. I'll stop it there. Oh, I think you might be on mute. And I'm still hearing you on mute. I guess that means you just want me to keep on talking.
One moment.
She's like,
oh, sorry about that.
It's okay.
All right, there we go. Okay, so wow, you said quite a bit there. And one thing I want to definitely touch on is allyship. And I'm so thankful for that person that was in the room that directed back to you. That was absolutely the right thing to do. So that means allies are absolutely important, right? So, how have you encouraged others that don't look like you to be an ally?
Well, it's interesting. We live in such a fantastic time where all of a sudden being an ally and understanding what things like Juneteenth are. How many of you were surprised? You feel like, oh, we're going to have a day off for Juneteenth and we're going to have a moment of, and you're like, I can't believe we're celebrating this probably. It was awesome. You're just like, wow, this is great. Because there's been so much media attention and people are finally saying, I should probably start to wrap my arms around this. There's all these companies that are saying, hey, we're finally going to get serious about diversity and knowing your story and da da da. So a lot of this has happened very, not easily, but people have reached out to me saying, Lilah, how can I be more connected? How can I be more of an ally? People have reached out to me saying, you know what, Lilah, I've been working with you for I don't know how long, and I don't know your story. I'd love to know your story. And just being able to have space and make space for those conversations. And then also enabling those people to go and educate themselves, not being the conduit for education, because we shouldn't have to educate, right? I mean, folks have Google. Really encouraging them to go and educate themselves so that they can become better allies, and letting them know how big of a difference it makes in their organization, our organization, for them to have this open point of view. And that has been a wonderful role to play. I'm so grateful that I'm where I am right now in this time, so that I can be a part of that awakening. And it's so interesting because for us, this is always, I'll never forget folks, after George Floyd, how are you doing? And I was like, it's weird that you're asking me this, but this has been going on forever. Like, Black folks have been killed forever. Like this is you just know about it. Like, but
this is the norm.
This is what we know, right? My mother at the time, this was a long time ago, she would always say, don't ever be caught alone with a white woman. She told all my brothers that. She's like, don't ever be caught alone with a white woman. And that was in Milwaukee, right? Like, wasn't even like down, like she's like, because it will go bad for you. Like that was what I grew up with, right? And so it was just really interesting that this awakening and this awareness is happening. And I'm just grateful that I can, be helpful where I can be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Awesome. So, thinking about, and as someone said in the chat, women learning to work in an all male environment is a skill. It absolutely is a skill. And thinking about when you said, assimilating, thinking about that and changing, when we assimilate, we sometimes have to change a little bit of who we are, right? And so in that process, how much of you did you change?
Girl, all kinds of stuff. I'm not happy about it, but yes, I did change. I will tell you one thing, and now granted it wasn't as popular, but and all of us women did this. Trying to come across as not plain, but not letting my ethnic side show. Not letting my ethnic side show. I would use creamy crack. I kept my hair bone straight. I wanted to make sure that everything I talked about was they were comfortable and we didn't push the envelope on anything. I very rarely shared things like, hey, I used to work in a body shop. People are like, dude, I didn't even know that. I've been knowing you for like 15 years. I never shared those things about me, right? Because I was so busy trying to be liked by them, right? I tried to do what they did. Now that was maybe not the right thing to do, but it was the only way I knew how to move forward at that time. And my mentors say, hey, listen, if you want to be successful, you got to play the game with people in power, right? And so you can choose this to be the place where you put the rod in the ground and you're going to be this activist, but that may or may not work for you. And so that being said, I absolutely tried to have the same types of experiences and talk tracks that they did. Now that all changed in 2016 when I started with Google. When I started with Google, it was the first time I felt like I was in a company that the culture matched me versus me matching the culture. And the first thing I did was I stopped getting a relaxer and I let my curls come out, which you can't see today because they are like, what? I let my curls come out. I let this freaking pantsuits go and all that crap, right? I let all the golf polos go. You all know who you wear in the khakis and the golf polos because that's what everybody wears and you just trying to, you know what I mean? Anyway, I let all of that go and I just started being Lilah. And I will tell you, my career has taken off. Yeah. Not having to toe the line and make sure everybody feels comfortable. I'm vegan and I've been vegetarian for a long time. And even that, in certain environments, you'd be like, oh my gosh, you're vegetarian. It's like, what do you eat? Like I would have people, we would go out to big dinners and they would order for everybody, which I don't like. And they would get me just a big thing of broccoli and they would laugh at me. I'm the only Black woman there, the only person in leadership, and y'all don't owe me a big old giant thing of broccoli. We couldn't go to a place that had options. You know what I mean? Like for real. Anyway, that being said, and starting with Google and being in a culture that not only is celebrating who you are as an individual, but they actually make plans for it. They want to know, like, hey, what's good for you? Hey, what are your dietary restrictions? Hey, what kind of experiences? And like asking those questions has been just wonderful. So I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, no, you did. And it's such a blessing to work for an organization that values, diversity, and great to hear that Google does. I know my organization, Lilah Company, who is also a big supporter of BDPA, I feel the exact same way. I show up like I am. Now, that hasn't always necessarily been the case. We've evolved, right? But let's just celebrate for all of the ladies that have decided to just rock your natural, whether it's your curls, your sister locks, whatever. So hand claps I want to see some hand claps in the chat.
And how many of us have noticed that it's so much less time, right? Like for me, like working out is so much easier. I never have to worry about if I can go swimming on a certain day unless it's COVID. Like it's just so much easier. I get so much time back. And I wonder, why did I sit in a chair every Saturday morning for how many years trying to get some hair? Yeah, why did I do that?
Wow.
Right? And it was to fit in. It was to look what I thought was pretty, what I thought was acceptable. Trying to be like somebody I'm not. Girl, I'll never do that again.
Yeah. And, and think about this, just from a productivity perspective, right? You are expending a lot of energy in all of this other stuff that it matters, right? Because it impacts kind of our psyche and how we perform. But now you take that out of the equation, how much more productive are you?
Your male counterparts aren't spending all that time. Like, you know what I mean? It's a lot of time and it may or may not be worth it. But that's a journey too. So for those of you who haven't started, or you're somewhere in between, just know that it's okay. Wherever you land is fine.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me ask you this. So speaking about working for great organizations, what is Google doing to prioritize diversity, equity, and inclusion in the company culture?
Oh my goodness. There's so much press about that. Literally, all you have to do is Google diversity in Google and you'll see it. But to give you a kind of what we call a TLDR, which is a summary of what's going on, really having what we call OKRs, which is measurable results at the executive levels to bring in diverse teams, to make sure that we've got more people from underrepresented groups that are a part of our hiring panels, that are a part of our hiring pools. We're doing this, right? This is a way to be able to find more people that we can pull into the organization so that we can start to impact some of the numbers that we have. And I will tell you, it has grown and improved so much in the last year. It's really, really awesome. So that's on like the hiring and the bringing people into Google side. Then if you go into the how are we enabling, small business, underserved groups that have small businesses and things that we're doing with Grow with Google, things that we're doing in the communities with being able to support and fund different opportunities for people to come up. There's also something which I don't even know if you know about this, but there's in the Grow with Google, there's a certification process that you get through Coursera. I think it's $50 a month, where they take somebody who used to do hair, right? And they help you get certifications that will take you from wherever you are today to coming in entry level at $80,000. I will tell you, $80,000 in Milwaukee, like I'm thinking about who I was when I started my career. If I could have come in and gone from the body shop to Google certification, making $80,000, are you kidding me? That's a huge game changer. One of the biggest challenges in these underserved communities, our underserved communities for us, is that we just don't make enough money. Just don't, right? I don't care how many things you do. If we can't start to break the cycles of not having enough money, having too much debt, and all these different things, it's very, very difficult. So Google said, hey, you know what? We're going to go to the heart of the problem and teach the folks how to fish and not just give fish. And it's a phenomenal program. It's phenomenal. I don't know if people know about this. It's very inexpensive. And at the end of it, they help you find a job making $70,000 to $80,000 entry level, a job that is phenomenal. So all of you are experts and you're already in the tech field, so this is probably not helpful for you, but you may have a cousin or friends, anybody who's asking you for money all the time. This is a great opportunity for them to up their skill level.
Yeah, absolutely. That is awesome. So I'm just curious, for those of you that are joining, if you could use, a thumbs up if you were aware about what Lyla just shared in terms of what Google is doing. Who knew that? I see a few. Okay, but not for, looks like for the most of you, you weren't aware of it. So great. This is one good reason why you should always tune in to our Tech Talk, because Lila's dropping all types of nuggets. And so, part of it is being aware. Awareness is key. So thank you for sharing that. That is awesome.
The other thing I'll share is these are not things that require you to go to college, right? The idea was that so many people have been displaced because of COVID and they, work in restaurants or whatever, and they've got to figure out something else. This is a way to enable some of those groups too. So it doesn't require college. It doesn't require anything special. All you have to do is have the fight to go in there and get after it. Get after it.
Yeah, go get it. I love it. And so, Raymond, we will definitely share the link for the information regarding the program. Absolutely. Jesse, can you take care of that for us? All right. So let's talk a little bit about cloud. So Lilah, give us your definition of what cloud is and why should people care about it?
So I'm going to give you the non-tech version and the tech version. So most times when I'm out and people say, what do you do? And I was like, oh, I work for Google. And they automatically assume like YouTube, right? And I say I work in cloud. They say, what does that mean? I'm like, well, if you've ever taken a picture and you didn't have enough space, somewhere in the Apple or the Google cloud, you don't have enough space. And so they're making you pay for more space, either on your OneDrive, whatever it may be. That is cloud. So cloud is, you're basically using somebody's very large data center someplace else, right? And you're paying a small fee for that. In the context of what we're doing, we're saying for large organizations, instead of having a data center someplace where you're paying for hardware and you're dealing with depreciation and you're going through all that, use our amazing data centers and get the scale you need and only pay for what you need. So it's really kind of an idea of displacing the old school data centers with Google's huge data center and getting the efficiencies and scale that come from that.
Awesome. Yeah. So let me ask you this. What separates Google Cloud from some of the other cloud platforms?
That is a great question. I feel like I spend my whole day answering that to everybody. Everybody's like, why Google? Why not AWS? Why not Microsoft? Why not whatever? And the truth is, all of those are great solutions, right? You can probably get the job done with any and all of them. I would say probably some of the biggest differences with Google is cost, I'd say innovation, and depending on what you're doing, if what you're doing is very data intensive and AI is really important for you, or if you're doing something where you're using a language app and you need really great accuracy on that, that's unparalleled by Google. If you have any kind of a workload, we talk about workloads all the time as just being potentially an application that somebody's using, and it is made better by getting really fast response times on data, or made better by being able to leverage AI that's baked into the platform, then Google is hands down the best alternative. If you're just doing straight IaaS, so infrastructure as a service, so it doesn't really matter, it's not data intensive, you're literally just using a server in somebody's cloud, it probably really doesn't matter which one you use.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you for breaking that down. That's good to know, because I know that's a question that comes up often, which is better. So thank you for telling us that. So let me ask you this. As technology continues to evolve, where do you foresee cloud in, let's say, 5-10 years? And how is Google adapting to remain a leader in the market?
Well, cloud is where it's at, right? So our projection is that our cloud business will, I'm not going to say match our ads business. So Google is primarily an advertising company, but we'll be very close to it in a 10-year period, not a 5-year period. So this is the next big bet for Google. It's the next big thing Google wants to be known for. And that's because all the statistics say that this is where the trends are going. which has never been more obvious with COVID happening, right? Companies that are already in the cloud and doing things digitally have done well. Those who are like, hey, I don't know, I just work from home, really struggled, right? And so that was like the final push that those not late, you know how you have early adopters, right? Then you've got like the middle section, then you've got the people who do it kind of last, right? The folks who got a color TV last or got a, what is it, HD TV now, like whatever it is, whatever folks are getting, whoever gets it last, right? Those folks, those companies, because of COVID are now like, oh, I get it. I can't be tied to a location. I can't be tied because it's a what do you call it? There's too much risk from a disaster recovery perspective. And so that is going to continue to escalate. So how is Google getting ready? We're getting ready by investing tons of money in new data centers, tons of money in talent, tons of money in innovation and research and development to continue to evolve our cloud and put more and more capabilities on our cloud platform. AWS is doing the same. Azure's doing the same. The more services that you can buy by subscription as a company, the better. Think about you as a person. You used to have cable. Who remembers the cable boxes and you used to have to stand in line and give it back? And right. It was awful. How many of you still do that? I mean, I cut the cord years ago, or so are companies.
I think 5 years ago. Yep.
All of those things are cloud trends. Mm-hmm. So if you think about how many subscriptions, like I know in my budget, I now have a software subscriptions monthly spend between Netflix and all these other things. So do companies. And that is the future. That's now, and that's only going to get bigger.
Yeah. Wow. You're right. Yeah. I now have created a new line item in my budget. I probably should because we have all those services. I don't think I've accounted for how much. Yeah, anyway.
That's a different talk, right? Financial fluency and financial health, that's a different talk.
Talk a little bit about, for folks that might be interested in navigating into the cloud space, what would you say, how would you guide them into having a career in cloud?
So I love that you asked that because I get that question often and it kind of depends on where you're landing, right? So if you're like, I have no capabilities in that area from a technical perspective, it's probably going to make sense for you to invest in getting some of our technical certifications. You get a technical certification, that's a great way of saying, hey, I'm serious about this and I'd really like to learn more. Just so you know, all the customers who are buying Google Cloud, they can't hire Google architects fast enough. That's another starting off at $80,000 to $100,000 job. They can't hire them fast enough. There's just not enough talent. Often we'll lose because they say, hey, listen, I want to buy this solution, but I don't have anybody who can maintain it. There's not enough talent out there that's Google certified for your cloud. It's one of the highest paying jobs you can get from one certification. Just saying. Yeah. So that is, if you've got, now that wouldn't be for somebody who has like no idea about tech. What I talked about earlier is better for people who are coming from outside the industry. But if you're in the industry and you're like, I kind of get this, getting that certification is certainly a great way to start. If you're not super technical and you see yourself in more of the sales support areas or technical support areas, there's all kinds of opportunities to get involved with jobs posted all the time. But typically we're looking for people who've got 10 years experience. So if you don't have that 10 years experience, don't even bother because there's so many people who are looking to get engaged there. I would say the other thing to think about is our partners. I can't tell you how many of our Google Cloud partners have incubators where they're bringing in people who have very, very basic skills or entry-level skills in the cloud. They're paying for your certification, and then they're asking you to work there for 2 years, almost like an apprenticeship. That is a fantastic way to get involved.
Yeah, thank you. So, can you repeat the name of the program that you mentioned earlier that pretty much most of us had no idea about?
What was the question? What is the name of it?
Yeah, the name of the program that you were talking about.
So let me just double check. I just finished doing one of the commercials for the data certification, and it's with Grow with Google. And actually, if you're okay with me looking off camera here, I will get the link. Yeah. Grow with Google.
Yeah, because I want to make sure people have all of this, these amazing resources.
They're called Google Career Certificates. Let's see here. Get started, and This may not be the best link, but it'll just give you an idea. I'm going to put it in the chat.
Great, thank you.
And you'll see on there, it's got get a job in analytics, average entry level. This one's for data analytics. They have other ones, but average entry level salary for data analytics is $67,900. Number of open jobs is 337,000, and that's just so they'll say, hey, listen. And there's all kinds of videos on there, and people who are like, I used to work in construction, and then COVID happened, and it's great. It's great. It's great. It's great. And you'll see me on the data analytics one talking about how I used to work in a body shop and how I use data analytics.
We want to see a commercial, definitely. If you have that link handy, you can pop that in the chat too.
All right. I don't want to be digging while I'm talking, but I'll look for that.
Fine. Okay. So, so you just provided that link. Just in general, how can people find out about more career opportunities with Google Cloud?
Ask. There's so many people out there. I've rattled off all of these opportunities, right? There's so many people out there who are willing to help. What I've seen most often is people will come to me and say, hey, can I get a one-on-one with you? And when I have time, I will. And I'll get on the phone with them and I'll be like, okay, what do you want? And they're like, I don't know. And you're like, well, what? Have a point of view, right? Arm yourself with some data. One of the things that I do, as I mentioned, as an adjunct professor, I teach, and I always tell people, if you think you're interested in a company or career, do your research first, right? Have a point of view so that when somebody says, you know what? I like that. I think you should talk to Susie and Bob, right? And they can enable you and be more of a sponsor to you. When you don't have that point of view and you have nothing that you've kind of already worked on, people will have one-on-ones with you, but nothing comes from it, right? And it's just kind of like, oh, all right, well, good luck, right? So I would highly encourage you to educate yourself, find out what's out there, dip your feet in the water, start to be curious about it. Because if you're curious about it, you'll have opportunities to engage and talk about something that's super meaningful and that's going to push you forward when you're reaching out and asking questions.
Awesome. Thank you. So let me look in the chat because I see there are probably a couple of questions and I want to make sure I allow for some of these questions. This has been so good, so good.
Mr. Andrea, if you like, I'll allow people to unmute and they can ask the questions as you get to them in the chat.
What? Yeah, we can do that. That way they can have some opportunity to dialogue with Lilah. Because I mean, y'all, she's like up high now, you know.
All right, I've allowed everyone the option to unmute. So as you see questions that are in the chat, we can get to those, or we can do a round robin.
Awesome. Let's go ahead and is somebody ready to ask the first question?
Hi, my name is Takia Ellis, and I have a question. I noticed that like Amazon and Azure, their project management roles are like more so program managers. What type of roles does Google have for project managers? Is it similar?
So I'm not familiar with what AWS's program or product management roles are, so I don't think I can answer that. I will say that in Google Cloud, when we have program manager or project manager roles, it is for service delivery specifically. So in our customer success programs where somebody has a large commit or has done a big deal with Google and now we have to deploy that technology, we have program manager roles that are, or project management roles that are specific to that. Now in Sunnyvale, in our HQ, there's probably lots of different product management roles that are very specific to a technology, but I am not as familiar with the differences.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. So hey, Lilah, if someone, there's a couple of professors also on, and if they want to have you speak to maybe like a class or something, would you be open to doing that?
I'm always open to it. I try to at least allocate 10 hours a month for doing that kind of stuff. It doesn't always happen, but I do try to allocate that time.
What's the best way for them to connect with you for that?
Just reach out.
Okay.
Real easy.
All right, awesome. They can connect with you on LinkedIn as well?
Absolutely.
Awesome, good deal. Is there, so let's see, and I cannot pronounce this person's name, but is there any opportunities for graduate? I'm actually going to ask you to come off mute, or some Samajo. I'm sorry, I know I'm butchering your name, but you have a question about opportunities for graduate refresher in Google Cloud.
I am not sure what that is.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. So we'll see if, let's see.
Hi, Lilah. How you doing today?
Hey.
First of all, thank you all for the platform and thank you for joining us today. I love your energy. I've been a member of BDPA for several months now, and I'm looking forward to skill growth. And this has been a very inspirational meeting here. My question would be, with your background in cloud, do you foresee any major risk in cloud? And one of the things that I'm asking particularly is any effects on nature or any effects on the human population in terms of how we interface with technology. Is technology becoming over consuming in our life, or is it actually building that bridge to our future that we actually need?
I love that you asked that question. And I think that those are two different things. So you've got cloud technologies, right? And you've got these big data centers, and are those being built in a way that's green? Yes. Are they creating jobs? Yes. Is all of that perfect? Maybe not. But is everybody trying to be aware of the environment as they're building these large data centers in Iowa? Absolutely. Now, the flip side of that is, how is technology changing the way we interact as people?
Okay.
How are we using technology? Is social media something that is changing the way we engage with each other? And all the answers to that are yes, absolutely. I mean, for those of you who were around before the internet was around, like, this wasn't even a thing, right? And now it's a thing, and we have to be thinking about that with our children. We have to be thinking about that with ourselves. We have to be thinking about, I know one of the things Pixel has on it is, a well-being app that says, hey, listen, your screen time today was like 5 hours. What's going on with that? Things like the nighttime mode for mine turns on at 9 o'clock. Everything gets silenced at 9 o'clock, and it also turns to grayscale because of the impact of having a color screen in front of your face on your sleep. Because I'm really #into sleep. I have a sleep ring. It's called an Aura, and it always gives me stats on what my readiness score is every day. Different. Okay. But the point is, it's what you do with the technology. If you are blindly being addicted to your phone on Facebook and Instagram all the time, and the first thing you do is grab for your phone in the morning, that is something that you and your family have to manage. It is not the technology's challenge, it is yours. I am not on Facebook. I am not really on Instagram. I don't really do all that because I really, really value my time. And I love to disconnect and just go and sit on a rock. But that's a personal choice. Do I think that if you're not mindful and if you're not deliberate about making sure you have good digital health, it is addicting. It's made to be addicting, and it's made to be addicting because there's advertisers who want that. It's no different than television. Back in the day, everybody's like, how much TV do you watch? Well, it's no different than that. And if you're not mindful about it, it can control you and impact how you engage with others. And so that's a longer answer. I'm super passionate about that because if you're, again, especially with children and people wanting phones and all this, and that level of safety online is really important to me. And so that's what I might encourage you to do. I don't think it's any different than saying, what are you eating? I think you were saying earlier that you like fish usually and you eat some chicken sometimes. But like for me, I'm vegan. I choose not to eat dairy. I choose not to eat meat because I have diabetes and heart disease in my family. I mean, coming from Milwaukee, we were all on about the cheese and meat or whatever, and like sausage and beer and blah, blah, blah. And you know what? Enough. So I choose not to do that. It is a personal choice based on my education and what I've seen my parents go through for not focusing on that. I don't think tech is any different. I'll leave it there.
Absolutely. Phenomenal answer. And Chandria, if I can ask one more question.
No, I'm joking.
Oh,
Go
no, this has been beautiful. And the other question I would relate, we just recently had International Women's History Day and Women's History Month, right? And here we have two phenomenal women leading the conversation here today. I want to ask the question of how important is it that we have women not only at the table but leading the conversation in technology space?
Well, it's interesting that you say that. I'm going to be biased because I am a woman, right? I think that women or not, diversity is the best way. It's already got an ROI. It's been proven that the more diversity you have of thought and ideas, the better. If you recall, one of the questions was, how do I find out more about cloud? How do I get more questions answered? And I said, ask, get diverse perspectives, ask other people, right? That's really important. But from a woman specifically, and this is changing, and so I'm okay with my answer being dated. Typically, women have been the leads in the household. Typically, they are. Typically, they have most of the caretaking responsibility, have most of the child care responsibilities, and sometimes they are holding what my mom used to say, the pocketbook. Who holds the pocketbook, right? Or who's in charge of the finances? It's not always that way, but often it is. Now, if you empower those women with the skills and the abilities, and you put them in leadership roles in high growth areas like cloud, how much better is the whole family? How much better is the whole family? I, for one, am so incredibly jazzed about being able to be a mentor and a role model for my daughter, who's 10 years old, who's like, Mom, when I grow up, I'm gonna work for Google. And Mom, she sits in, we're all at home because of COVID, and she's sitting in the other room listening to all my conversations. I hear her on her Zoom meetings or whatever, and she's like, okay, guys, we have to bring everything together and really think about this creative. I'm like, stop listening to my conversations. But in any event, being able to impact, especially African American girls, which is my passion, and giving them the strength, confidence, and finances to write their own story. Are you kidding me? Cloud has done that for me and my family. I will always be grateful for that.
Phenomenal answer. Phenomenal woman. Thank you. Thank you, Chandria.
Absolutely. And Lilah, it's funny. So my daughter is 10, and yes, she's like, I'm going to work for Lily, but she also says she wants to work for Google too. So I don't know. We got to figure that one out.
I love it. My daughter's like, I want to work for Google, but she also knows, she's like, but I'm going to have my side hustle. I was like, that's right, because you'll never have all your money in one bucket, right?
That's
you're in sales, you don't have one deal on the pipeline. Make sure you got money come from other areas. So she's like, I'm going to start my own business. I'm going to set my own website. Like, she is all in, and I'm so happy.
I love it. I love it. What other questions do you all have? We have about 10 minutes left, and I want to make sure you can get your questions answered.
How you doing? My name's Lawanza Quince. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
You sure can.
Real good. How's everybody doing? Directing, of course, this question to Lilah. I want to ask you a question. I think that I've seen at the graduate school at Northwestern University that your profile has been showcased as one of the past or current PhD candidates at the university. Is that correct?
One of the past what candidates?
Oh, at Northwestern University's the graduate school program, on one of the graduate school pages, I think I saw your
You
profile.
may have, yeah, because I'm with Medill, which is the graduate school. So you probably did.
Reason why I asked is that I recently was admitted to their postgraduate master's PhD program in computer.
Oh, nice.
Congratulations.
And you were the only Black person who I saw. And because of that reason, I wanted to reach out to you to ask you some questions about the culture and environment there at the graduate school.
So it's not as great as it could be, which is why they asked me to be part of it. Their faculty and their teams don't always look like their students, and they're aware of that, and they're trying to change it. So
I see. Yeah, I took
that is
classes in undergrad there long time ago, but I didn't finish up there. And I was wondering, have things changed now? I wanted to send you an email, but I didn't know if it was appropriate to go looking up people's emails who you don't know and sending them contacts. But I like to ask for future references. Is it okay if I reach
Just
out to you?
reach out on LinkedIn. I'll get it in 2 seconds.
I certainly will, and I will, defer any future questions through social media and an email. Okay,
Fantastico. Thanks for your question.
you're
Mhm.
welcome.
And Lawanda, it's you can stalk people and contact them anytime. You don't have to ask for permission because if you don't ask, you might not get it, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. But I would like to say that I think that the certification programs that you're proposing is a great avenue and conduit to moving into the IT space. I have around 13 or 14 certificates from Java and various .NET certifications, and that has been a career changer. I'm a .NET software developer now. Formerly, I used to work in both chemistry and chemical engineering. I used to be on staff over at IIT's Research Institute, and I decided over the years to change gears and move into a different career direction.
Yeah, that's great, Lawanda. Hey, we have to move on to another question, but definitely make sure you reach out to Lilah on LinkedIn and get it. All right, next question. And pronounce your name too, please, because I've been butchering it.
Can't hear you. We see your mouth moving, but we can't hear you.
Seminoj, I think is maybe how you might pronounce your name. You're off mute now, so you can go ahead.
Can I go ahead?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks a lot. So I'm Sai, back from India, recently graduated, major in computer science background. And thank you, Google. I seen few people are from Google. I was been did some project called Google Cloud Google Cloud README program, which is from the Google and it really helped me a lot, and I got an opportunity. It was in under process from I got a Google Cloud Engineer role GCP for just doing that course and just gaining some knowledge on that. I seen few people are from Google. I like to thank for this program which are taken forward for that. Apart from that, I applied for also Google for technical under the cloud program called technical solution engineer, which is, but I have done with the round one, but I did not get the result for the next process. So could you please guide me exactly what I'm not qualified in the round one, or due to the heavy applications, is there any pending process? Almost it was completed around 4 months. I did the exam and all like that. Thank you.
So is the question, what process should you be going through if you want to be considered for a technical role at Google and cloud?
Yes, exactly.
And are you talking about specifically for the interview?
Yes, interview process and also the step 1, step 2 process called and round 1, round 2 like that for the freshers. Actually, I'm a fresher, so that one.
Okay, so I'm not exactly sure on that second piece, but in general, on YouTube, under the Google Cloud channel, they have all kinds of content there for people by role on what it takes to get hired. So they'll say, hey, here's what to expect in the interview. Here's what you should be thinking about as you position yourself for these types of roles. Because one of the things that's really interesting is people will say, hey, I want to work in Google Cloud, I want to work in Google. And you say, what role? And they're like, I don't know. And you're like, oh, can't help you. So it's really good for you to already know, like, hey, I think I want to be a technical lead for this particular product, or hey, I think I want to be a customer engineer, or hey, I think I want to be a technical account manager. Any of those things, then it's very easy to say, okay, you need to look at our professional services organization and look at videos that focus on TAM. And then you can do a search term and get a plethora of information about how to prepare for that job. Now, if you're going about it horizontally and just kind of picking things from different areas and trying to prepare that way, that's going to be tough because no one will be able to tell you how to prepare for that particular interview, and they are different. So I would advise you to get really clear on what role it is that you're going for. Then based on that role title, do a Google search on preparing for the interview prep for whatever role it is that you saw. And you will see channels on YouTube where they'll have people saying, hey, I'm in that job now. Here's what I did. And it'll help you out.
All right, awesome. We have one last question. Camille, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. And thank you so much, Lilah and Chandra, for this amazing talk. So I'm a first-year PhD student at Rice, and I actually am studying AI ethics, and that's sort of what my research is in. And so I have to bring it up, I'm sorry, but like,
I know, I'm ready.
Given sort of the recent events that have happened in Google Brain, specifically with researchers in AI ethics, specifically Black women and other women researchers in AI ethics, I honestly, like, it's a bit disheartening and concerning as a researcher who does this sort of research and who wants a career in this. And I definitely don't think that this is an issue specifically with Google. I'm sure these sorts of things are happening all over the place, but I guess my question is, like, how do you sort of muster up the confidence and, you know, just continue doing work and something that you're authentic and very passionate about, that when you may not be directly supported, or you might be in an environment that sort of like conflicts with a lot of the stuff that you might be doing? Because that's like just a genuine challenge and question that I've had recently given the recent events.
And I love that you mentioned that because it's true. It is tough. Somebody asked me, like, you know, as an African American woman who's always talking about Google and very active on all the recruiting channels, how do you deal with that, right? And the truth is, we're not perfect. We still make mistakes. We're trying. We're not there yet. We make mistakes all the time. And so I think that in general, taking that as kind of the foundation, and continuing to move forward even when things aren't perfect, that's the grit that you want. You always measure the character of a person by how they are doing when things aren't perfect, not based on how they're doing when things are wonderful. There's all kind of biblical points of view on that, and there's all kind of stories about that. And so the question is, yes, some people are human. They're going to screw up. There's 70, 80,000 folks who work for Google. They are all at different levels in their journey. What happens, though, once that challenge happens? How does the company respond to it? And that has been something that I've been very, very pleased with, right? We can't keep bad things from happening, but we can respond to it. And I know there's been quite a few changes in headcount and in responsibility based on those public stories that have come out in that AI and ethics team. Now, I'm not going to speak about what those are because that's not being made public, but I have seen change come from that type of thing. And so I try to be very focused on, again, things are going to happen that are bad. We've had relationships and things that have gone on in our personal lives, and we don't write people off because they didn't pay us back or they didn't call us back. We give them grace. And I've chosen to give Google grace because we've always chosen to follow up and respond in a way that was meaningful. Maybe it didn't change things overnight, but if it's mentionable, it's manageable. And it's always been mentioned, and steps have always been taken to manage it. And I would encourage you to do the same in your life and in things that you're doing. Finally, think about, what is your why? What is your why around what you're doing? What is the reason, or your raison d'etre, your reason for being? And stay focused there, because, and I heard T.D. Jakes say this one time, things will come up and down. And if you're not solid on your foundation, you'll go up and down with them. But if you're solid on your foundation, it doesn't matter what's going on over here, what company did this, or what story came out, or which, disease came out where you can't go anywhere. You're going to stay here. And that's a thing that you can control. And so I would encourage you to get really grounded on what those principles are that keep you here. And then hopefully other folks will figure it out, and maybe things will go right, maybe things will go wrong, but you will stay where you need to be for you and your family.
That's incredibly helpful. Thank you.
Thank you all. Lilah, thank you so much for your energy, your passion, your candor, your transparency. It has been an absolute pleasure to have this chat with you and just hear from you. I want to go ahead and turn it over to BDPA's National President, Mr. Terry Morris, and allow him to have closing remarks. So thank you again, Lilah.
Thanks for having me.
Well, this has been excellent. Thank you, Lilah, and for your very transparent and thoughtful contribution today. Thanks, Jesse. I think he's still on as well for helping to steward our Google partnership here. It's been a great partnership, and I certainly appreciate the transparency in the dialogue today. I haven't found a perfect place just yet. I believe it's on the other side, so I'm not anticipating I'm running into it on this side, but knowing that Google, along with many others, are willing to be transparent about where you are and moreover where you're headed, and so we value the partnership with Google and look forward for even more opportunities to play together. So thank you for today. This was excellent, a great way to continue our journey to broaden our participation in data science.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Y'all know Terry is a proud rattler, as I am. I saw some A&T people in the chat. Couldn't help myself in saying, rattlers are leading things here.
I'm gonna let thank you, Chandria, for being the guest host today. It's great seeing you back on this platform.
Absolutely. It's great to step back in for a minute. Love it. And Devin, thank you for the opportunity. And hey, everyone, please definitely make sure you continue to connect on all of the social media platforms so that you can stay abreast of all of the tech talks. They are absolutely amazing and certainly worth your time. Be sure to tell a coworker or friend. And yeah, we'll see you next time. Have a great weekend and take care.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all very much.